Hello and welcome to Cloudforest Vibes. My name's Bobby, and this is how I grow orchids and carnivorous plants. Hello and welcome to Cloudforest Vibes. It is a lovely sunny Saturday morning, and there is no better time than now to go through my greenhouse and share some things with you. We have a whole lot of progress. I have a whole lot to talk about. Sorry for my absence the last few weeks. I have been extremely busy inside of work and outside of work, and last weekend I was getting ready to film a video and I noticed that I actually had scale on one of my plants. So I had a mini meltdown. I definitely annihilated it from that plant for sure, I think. And I've gone through my entire collection, and I have literally dosed a few different times, a few different things, in order to try to kill just about anything and everything that's in here right now, except for the plants, and keep moving forward without any issues. So all that, on top of everything else, the seasons are changing. So the other night, I left the window open in my plant room like I typically do to try to encourage a nighttime drop in temperatures. It got down into the 40s. My low that night, I think in here, was 58 degrees. I was not prepared. So we shocked a few of the plants, honestly, into doing a few things that they're supposed to do. So that's another thing that we're going to talk about. I've got a lot of changes with my dendrobiums, especially. The light levels are changing, the cooler temperatures, and everything else is going to induce some of them into starting to drop their leaves. So a few scary moments where I saw a bunch of yellow leaves, and then I had a sigh of relief when I did realize that most of them are dendrobiums. Most of them actually are supposed to lose their leaves. So having that said, it is that time of year where you need to be very cognizant and very attentive to your plants and to the conditions and everything else that they're getting, especially if they're exposed to any sort of outdoor elements. I just left the window open. I can't even imagine how bad it could have been had I actually had an outdoor grow area where my plants were dependent on me for heat, and I did not supply that for them. So anyhow, the heater is in. It stays in here, but I didn't have my nighttime temperature tuned the correct way on my thermostat, so it got down a little bit cooler than I wanted it to get for this time of year. That's a great temperature for me in the winter, once they're in their full rest mode and I'm growing cooler already. But for me, I like to transition them a little bit. I do have a lot of plants that grow warm, so to go from having high 60s to mid 60s at night down to having high 50s in one night is pretty drastic. You can hurt plants by doing that. So again, be very aware and be very careful about temperatures and stuff and sun and everything else this time of year. So without further ado, we're going to get in here and we're going to start looking around a little bit closer at some plants, because man, I do have a lot of awesome progress to share with you guys. So here we go. So first and foremost, this is my Dendrochilum gracile that we looked at a few weeks ago in my struggling plants video, and as you can see, I have remounted this orchid right back on the same mount. I've slid it up so it's no longer an issue, and it is already rewarding me with a few new growths. I don't know if you'll be able to see, but at the base of, let's see, the base of this pseudobulb, the base of this pseudobulb, this pseudobulb, we have 2 new growths and a dog. Anyhow, so we have, I think, saved this plant. I've hung it up here. I've put a lot less moss on it this time, and I have absolutely tried very hard not to crowd the rhizome. So you can actually see some roots. They are green, they are happy, and they have plenty of moss to keep them moist when they want to stay moist. The mini phals that I repotted are doing fantastic. All 3 of them, they're already growing. This one actually tried to throw a spike and I cut it off because I want more strength to get back into that plant. The leaves are still very small for what they used to be, so it needs to get happy before it's going to be allowed to bloom again. The Phalaenopsis bellina is back. This is its second day open on its second flower for me, so lovely bloom. I absolutely adore this plant. It smells great, it looks great, and it lasts a reasonable amount of time. It was about 3 weeks, I believe, 3.5 weeks that the bloom lasted. All the while the one behind it was developing. I'm not sure now that it's getting cooler if this plant's going to continue to bloom, but I'm going to leave the spike on it until next season, and we're going to see what happens. Hopefully we can get multiple spikes, which means multiple flowers, which means lots and lots of this, which is awesome. The other Bellina is doing great. It's growing on strong. The Celebensis here, this is my latest leaf. It is long. I think it is still growing, and I have more coming, and it's doing great. It's putting on roots. It has a little plantlet coming down at the base. It is a really happy and healthy plant. I'm really interested to see what this does next year. I'm hoping it blooms. Really cool flowers. The Dendrobium unicum. Now, I've had people question it, and I'm actually beginning to question it. That's a very long cane for a unicum. But I'm excited about it. It grew really strong, really well. I believe we're at our terminal leaf finally, and it's starting to lose the first few leaves it put on, so it's going deciduous. I'm slowing down on the water for this guy, and I'm still slowly going to let it dry out and give it its winter rest and see what kind of blooms it has. It's got nodes on it. They're kind of bumpy here on either side, so I'm very hopeful for a good blooming from this cane. This is really, really impressive for me. It did grow really well, but I don't know if that's a unicum. This little guy, Dendrobium helwegianum, it's got several blooms on it. It's got several more coming, and it is an awesome little plant. I'm so happy about it. It has a really subtle fragrance, but a really nice fragrance. If you guys are interested in a little New Guinea weirdo that grows kind of like an onion or something, it's really another grassy, hairy looking weird thing. Hashtag grassy, hairy looking weird thing. And I just love those kind of dendrobiums. I really, really do. They're fantastic. This beast next to it, we're gonna have to go in a little closer for this, but this Bulbophyllum maximum, I don't know if you can tell or not, but has had an absolutely amazing season. It is large and in charge. Unfortunately, no blooms this year, but I think we've put a lot of strength into this plant. I'm going to grow this a lot drier this year in the winter time than I did last year. I'm going to try to induce some really good bulb shriveling without damaging too much of the root system or anything else, and I'm hoping next year we'll finally see this plant bloom. I've heard that letting it dry out in the winter is key, but I mean, look at that bulb down here. That's huge. Compared to anything else, this is the biggest one. So I'm hopeful for one of these last bulbs from last year perhaps to be one of the first ones to bloom. Speaking of that, I gotta move this Dendrochilum wenzelii, excuse me. I have a Bulbophyllum down here that I was just about ready to give up on at one point. It started growing really well finally. Last year it started growing new growths that were pretty strong, and it's pushed on, so I've kind of just nursed it along. I keep it in a relatively shady spot. It gets some bright LED light, but not much else. But I don't know if you've spotted it already or not. I am over the moon about this. It has thrown its first spike out. This is Bulbophyllum lepidum. So it's got the clustering type flowers. They're pink, I believe. And this is just a really neat Bulbophyllum, so I'm extremely excited. We're going to see some blooms off of this guy. I had a couple of bulbos I was looking forward to blooming this year that bloomed last year that actually did not bloom, at least so far this year. I believe I need to give them some more light. So we've been rearranging, we've been talking about that, but we'll discuss that a little bit more when we get over here on the brighter side to my right. Some more awesome news that we have is that our Tolumnia Jerac Flyer, God, Magic, this is Magic, is also in spike. I noticed this the other day when I was watering. We got one spike here coming on so far. Our red crystal's done. It's not going to branch any longer. I need to remove this spike, but if you look behind it, it has another spike that has just started coming out of one of its newest growths. So both of these should be in bloom at the same time, and I'm looking forward to seeing if any of the other ones decide to come out of their little fussy mood that they're in and decide to do anything. I'm relatively certain that Tetrapetala should. It bloomed last year, but Europhila, Sylvestre, Velutina, they have all been giving me some issues. So lately I've been on a little bit of a kick trying to make things right, so I pulled absolutely every bit of moss off of this thing. There was a few bits that were rotten. I threw them away, I spread them out, all the little pieces I have of Velutina. I did the same thing with my Tolumnia Europhila. It was just too moist in parts. The plant has actually broken into two pieces. So let me sit this down. So you have a piece on this side and then a piece on this side now. The piece on the right is not doing very well. I think this was a keiki when I got it. I think this had grown off of a flower spike or something else, and it has never grown that well for me since I got it. So I did the same thing. I ripped all the moss off. I preserved as many roots as I could, and I put it back on the same piece of bark so it can grow in a much drier existence but still get watered as frequently as I need to keep it happy. Same story with the little Calokyla up here. I put this in a higher spot. It gets warmer up here. It's the brightest spot that I have. This plant was doing quite a bit of suffering actually. It rotted a couple of its newest growths. This plant is a xerophytic plant. It grows basically in the desert, tropical desert. So it gets some humidity, it gets dews and things like that, but rain is pretty few and far between. So I am growing this extremely dry. I'm trying to get it as dry as possible and just give it a little bit of a mist here and there, and very seldom am I feeding it as well. So I'm hoping I can save it and turn it around, but it's all new to me. So xerophytic do not like water, not one bit. It came with a little bit of moss on the cedar plank. I'm sure the people were growing it outside. It probably dried out every day, but for me it was not. So anyhow, I have put it on a little tiny piece of cork bark, bare, and it's up here literally in the sun, full sun, right through the window in a very hot corner of my grow tent. I mean, it feels warmer here than anywhere else, so it kind of has its own little microclimate in a way. Growing right above my brassavolas, some of my lalias, things like that, also like to stay extremely dry. So that's that. Looking for progress there. Hard to talk about progress without talking about the Catasetum shunkii. This thing is awesome. This thing has grown so well for me. I'm really excited. The mount is working great. The roots stay on the mount. They are very much attracted to the moisture, and it has pushed out a really nice root system so far. It's still growing. It is still coming along quite nicely, and I'm very excited to see how it does in the next few months. I really want to see that thing bloom, but I think we're off to a really good start. More progress. Some of the most exciting progress I have, I think, is going to be down here. Let me move this out of the way. So this is my Miltonia Phymatokyla, and it has put on an absolutely amazing new growth. This is the newest leaf. It's huge, and I noticed about a week ago that this thing is in spike. So we should see this thing bloom. Very exciting. It's going to be the first of this genus to bloom in this greenhouse. It's the only Miltonia I have, but I believe this has been reclassified to an Oncidium Phymatochilum, but whatever. It's a Miltonia here. That's what's on the tag. So first of this genus to bloom. I've had a lot of trouble getting Oncidiums to bloom, except for this handy dandy Twinkle, which is also in spike. It threw up its first spike about a week ago as well. So I'm hoping Gomesa, you hear me? Bloom. Anyhow, so Miltonia Phymatochyla, and that's awesome. So another first time bloomer in here, and another really exciting thing going on. Lots and lots of progress, like I said, guys. So coming over here, it is going to be next to impossible to get this tiny little thing on film and in focus, but we're going to try. So this right here is one of my sundews. It bloomed. I'm going to have to throw a picture up of this. I cannot get close enough to this plant. But it's got a nice little fuchsia, kind of magenta pink flower, and it is absolutely adorable. That is the prolifera, as a matter of fact, that is blooming. This one in the middle. But yeah, neat little bloom. It's hard again, really hard to get this thing on film. Bloom we have first time in this greenhouse. So plants are doing awesome. They have been snatching up fungus gnats and other little things in here, just left and right. So the bonatas invading everything around it, and I'm gonna have to probably repot these and separate them out soon, because I do not want them to choke each other out. I want them to grow healthy and happy and keep eating all the bugs that they eat, because they do a fantastic job. So looks like our loaded Jessii is starting to lose its first leaves. I have my Dendrobium dichioides here, and this one has really started to dump some leaves on the lower canes. Those are some of the older canes, and man, look, they just keep going and going and going. This is the creeping variety. I don't think they're ever going to stop. I really don't. We're 2.5 years in. They have not stopped growing yet. Why would they now? So this thing has turned into quite a plant. I had to move it from back there to up here because of its length. It's just becoming hard to manage, hard to handle. But I think we're in for hopefully quite a treat this year from this plant, because if it's going to bloom everywhere it's leafless, or at least have a chance to, then we are looking at something that could be potentially quite special here. So that's Dendrobium dichioides. We don't get to look at this nearly enough, but it is doing quite well. Let's see. The Senili, I am pleased to say, I don't know if you can see that in there, but there is a new growth coming on, finally. Again, thank you, Roger. I did take your advice and made it brighter and windier, and I think the cool temperature is also helping this thing out. I know it doesn't look very bright right now, but it is backlit, and it's getting extremely bright in direct light. The sun's right up there. So coming around, this is the Epidendrum magnoliae. I hate to say it, this was the one that had scale. So I did a lot of work on this. I hit it with bonide insecticidal soap. I hit it with Phison, and I did the same thing the next day and the next day. Everything in my collection got hit with Phison. Everything that I could got hit with the bonide soap, but I really didn't have enough of it to get everything. So I'm currently waiting. I think I have to wait 1 more week, and I will be able to order some. I'm going to try the SB Invigorator, and I'm going to try, I believe, the Bio Advanced 3-in-1 for a systemic pest control. Now, I'm scared after hearing all the nightmare stories about what systemics can do, but I need to do something. So I'm going to start with the soapy wash type stuff, see if that makes a difference. But as preventative measures, I think some of these plants are going to start getting some of the 3-in-1 Bio Advanced. They just need it. I don't want to take a risk. I had a few spider mites in my collection this year, and with the scale, I'm just terrified. So I don't think I've been affected that badly. I haven't seen it on any other plants. I keep religiously checking everything, especially in this whole section, everything in this corner, every single day. I keep checking and checking and checking, but so far nothing. I know they have like a 2-week cycle and all that stuff, especially from watching Roger's videos and taking up some own research of my own on the matter once I found them. But I'm just hoping that I got ahead of it. So the Brassia, no signs yet of any spikes. It's growing like a maniac. I mean, it literally takes up this whole corner down here. I've moved it up, it's getting some more light. The new growths are coming on really strong, and so far it seems like they're going to try to stay on the mount. I'm a little worried about this one down here. I might need to pick this whole growth up and get it to grow up this piece of cork instead of out that way, which it looks like it might want to do. But last piece of awesome news, I have struggled with my Cattleya type hybrids. I have the Brassocattleya Fuchs Star and the Brassolalia Yellowbird, and this one was the first one I really started working on. I moved it up, I got it brighter. It's time. I think I need to separate this plant. I need to do a division. It's really starting to eat this mount. But I noticed the other day that I've got a spike on it for the first time, so we're actually going to get to see this plant bloom hopefully in the not too distant future, and I couldn't be more excited. Again, I have really struggled to get the Cattleya types to bloom, and I've had a really decent year with it so far. So I've got other ones that have been recently mounted that are reacting some better than others, but they are both growing on, and I've got other ones that I've been working on doctoring for quite some time. My saddest one, I think, is my Maikai Louise. I just cannot seem to get this plant to grow happy. I don't really have enough space for it, which is the sad thing, but I don't know. It might have to go. I might have to divide it and see what I can do about it, but I am making changes. It would be the time, and I do need to do something. But yeah, BL Yellowbird, Brassolalia Yellowbird, growing like a maniac. It's got roots on roots on roots on roots finally, after the last 2 years of growing it, and I gave it enough sun finally to get it to bloom. So excitement here. Let's see. I don't think there's anything else to talk about. Everything down here is doing well. The rotostictum, the Miltoniopsis is alive. I guess I can't say much about that. We can take a look at that, I guess. Let me get this back over here. So this is the Miltoniopsis vexillaria. Oh geez, let me get up. And I mounted it. It's doing okay. It is growing along. No accordion leaves or anything like that. The new growths are progressing, getting kind of big on the one at least. This one's not growing nearly as fast, but it is growing. And I am just trying to nurse this thing back to health. I don't see any roots coming yet. I am growing it moist but not wet. It's a fine balance with this thing, man. I have a lot of plants I'm trying to recover at the moment, and it's becoming quite the task. I mean, basically that plant, this Masdevallia, that plant, this, the Psychopsis, goodness, so many. There's so many in here right now. I'm in the process of recovering. It's going well, but it's just such a slow process, and if you guys have ever tried to recover and revive orchids, you guys know that it can be a real uphill battle, honestly. But just panning around in here, I really don't have anything else to talk about, so I think we should probably go out on this note. Bellina really is an absolutely beautiful flower. The camera does not do it justice. I'm telling you right now, it really does not do it justice. Smells great. Looks even better. So, thank you again for watching. I do appreciate each and every one of you. Sorry again for the disappearance for a little while, but I did have quite a lot going on. So, trying to shoot a few videos this weekend. I should have a little bit of time to do so, and get you guys back in the loop, get you caught up on everything that's going on, and take you with me on a few more things I do have yet to do. So, until next time, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. And please remember, as always, happy growing.